Hi guys, and welcome back to Whiskey Business. Now, I'm Levi.
I'm Evan.
And today we're going to take you on a wonderful tour of the subcontinent with some amazing Indian whiskies. So we're back today to talk some Indian whiskey. We fell in love with Indian whiskey probably a couple of years ago now. I think prior to that, it'd be fair to say we might have been a little bit snobbish about anything outside of Scotland or Japan. But before we get too deep into it, Evan, what have you brought along for us?
So I've brought probably what started our journey into Indian whiskey, which is Paul John. It's one of their three expressions. So today I have brought the edited, which funnily enough wasn't my favourite, but I think it was your favourite of the day.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about what we did with Paul John, but I think we ended up having five expressions
on
at a whiskey event that we went to, and it'd be fair to say they were all pretty fantastic. I mean, we got taken on a fantastic journey that basically made us stop worrying about trying anything outside of Scotland or Japan, and it really started our love affair with trying exotic whiskies.
Absolutely. So before we get into it, just a bit of brief background on it. So it's a blend of Indian six-row barley and peated Scottish barley. So there's a bit of a hint of peat in there as well. So at the end of the distillation process, when it's all been cast and ready to go, the peat ends up making up about 15% of the flavour profile of it, which gives it a ppm of 20 to 25%.
Yep.
Now, ppm is something we're probably going to deep dive in on a later episode, but as a brief intro, it's pretty much how you measure the level of peat or smokiness in a whiskey. ppm stands for fennel parts per million. So it's something we will explore a little bit more. We'll probably talk a little bit about peat in this one. So this is aged in bourbon casks. So we're hoping for possibly a little bit of sweetness and sort of stuff coming off of that. And it ends up being about 46% alcohol. Their cask strength that they do, I believe, is around 65, 67
from memory.
Yeah. So enough talk. Let's get down to whiskey.
Cheers.
Cheers. Just every time.
Very light on the nose too.
It is, yeah. But just a lovely amount of spice.
And I think that for people that probably don't drink a lot of whiskey, that on the nose will be pretty light. It'll actually it won't freak them out. Sometimes you get a whiskey and you can get it on the nose and have them sort of recoil back in horror. This is quite light. It's really sort of a very easy drinking experience.
Absolutely. All right.
Wonderful.
It's so nice.
Really, really good. Does have that sweetness, a little bit of spice to it as well, which I think is sort of the characteristic of a lot of
common in Indian whiskeys that there's a little
before.
bit of spice in there as well. But that peat just adds a lovely touch to it, where you get a hit of smokiness, but then it just kind of dissolves in your mouth. It fills as well, so not from viscosity as we discussed before, but more from that peat. You get a really nice full
and I think you've spoken before as well about having whiskies that sort of cover your whole palate with different flavour profiles. I think this does that.
This definitely does.
Fills your mouth, gives you a lot of different looks, a lot of different flavours. It's just a really lovely whiskey.
Yeah.
It's as you said, on the nose, and even to drink it is quite easy. It is probably one that someone that doesn't drink a lot of whiskey is going to be able to enjoy as well. But at the same time, I think it's got that complexity of flavour, just a little bit of peat, a little bit of heat on it as well, that your true dyed-in-the-wool whiskey lovers will also enjoy. As you know, we always try it with a little bit of water. Very interested to see how this one goes with the water, because it could be very hit or miss. We've had it work really well with some, we've had it not work at all with others. I've got no idea going into this what it's going to do.
Well, we also know Indian whiskies are designed to be had with ice. Obviously, they are from a tropical climate, so they want a nice cool drink. And this one specifically is from the Goa region, which is a slightly warmer. I remember speaking to a friend of mine who's from India, and Goa is like the party region.
Yeah, beachside. So sort of very different. But again, if you're drinking a whiskey like this that does have a little bit of heat, I drink most of my whiskies on the rocks. Evan drinks most of his neat.
Yeah.
I think for that reason, you would probably say this one, just because of where it's made and what you're probably expecting to drink it for, you probably would.
Although I have to say, my mind is getting changed as we start exploring the drops of water as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's died on the nose.
It definitely has died on the nose.
Oddly, I don't think the water does a whole lot for that, to be honest. It brings the peat to the front. It's quite smoky now.
Oh, yeah. You kind of lose a little bit of that sweetness.
You do. I think you lose some of the complexity of flavour. And again, it's odd. Generally, we expect that having a little bit of water in there is going to open up the flavour profiles. That sort of really just hones in on the peat and the smokiness for mine.
But it's not the worst.
It's not terrible. I actually think, again, going back to the way that we think these are meant to be drunk with ice or large ice cubes, a little bit of ice dissolving into water as you drink that would probably work
a lot better. As I said, I don't think that's horrible with water. I think I prefer it without.
Definitely prefer it.
But of the ones we've had, that's one I would probably say drinker's choice, really.
I think definitely.
I think the peat coming forefront, as we know, there are people who drink whiskey for peat.
Me?
Yeah.
Mostly.
So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for you, is to have something a little bit more peat forward and sort of stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I quite enjoy it. It's a very, very different whiskey. We've got Alfie, another one of our whiskey cats.
Yeah. And as a correction of our first episode, I mistakenly called the cat Archie Alfie. The reason it took us so long to realise this is because my sister, Levi's wife, never watched the episode and didn't correct us straight away. So.
Yeah, she's not a big whiskey fan. She's not all that interested in what we're doing. She did watch it back eventually and said, I can't believe you got the cat's name wrong. We've got 4 house whiskey cats and 2 house whiskey dogs. So there's a good chance that you'll see them popping in and out of episodes as we go. But back to the whiskey, I think with that one in particular, I think you do end up drinking different whiskies for different things, and I'm not going after a Paul John for a peat.
No.
I know that there are peaty whiskies, and you go after those specifically. One of my favourites is Lagavulin. We're going to do a couple of other peaty whiskies on the episodes to come. That I think you drink for a bit of spice and a little bit of a different flavour profile. So for me, that's not what I'm looking for. It's not bad.
Yeah,
it's just not what I would go to that whiskey for.
I think it's great either way. I prefer it without, but I think you definitely can if that's the way you prefer it. Once again, as we always say, try it for yourself.
Have a glass.
And it's not a super expensive whiskey.
It's not. What's it going for a bottle?
$90, $89.99.
Yeah, so it's a pretty reasonable price point. I think for that sort of complexity of flavour, something very different as well. Being able to, when you do start your own whiskey collection, you start having some different stuff on the shelves. Having something from India, something a little bit different would be pretty cool. A bit of a point of difference.
Yeah. Definitely worth trying their other expressions as well. Like the Bold is my personal favourite. It's a little less peaty, a little bit more sweet and spicy. And then there's the Brilliance as well, which it's been a while since I've had that.
It's been a while since we've had. So we'll very, very quickly. We'll do it 1 minute because we know that these episodes have been running quite long. But the Paul John, we had at a whiskey event. We had probably the best rep I think that we've ever had to present the Paul John. Yeah. Started with the comment of "Let me take you on a journey."
Take you on a journey.
Big, beautiful suit jacket. It all worked fantastically, and I think that builds into all of that nostalgia.
But what was amazing about it, because a lot of whiskey is about storytelling. Like if you look at the way whiskey's built, it's, especially if you look at the history of Scotch, it's where was it made, what type of barrels, what type of barley and sort of stuff. So whiskey on its own is storytelling, as it is. And this guy who worked for Paul John just did such a brilliant job of telling us this story that it kind of really opened up and definitely led to us being open to trying whiskies from different countries. Yeah. Some of them have worked out, some of them haven't.
You got to try before you buy. But I think as well with the Paul John, given that the first time we tried it, there were 5 different expressions. We were a little bit like, "Whoa, that's a long journey you're going to take us on." But it actually worked really well. They were all very different, all very distinct, all very bold and unique in their own way. And I think that going on that journey with our rep, as ridiculous as that might sound, actually worked really well. And I think we had our favourites, but overall, all 5 of them were pretty good.
Absolutely.
Rating this one's really tough.
Yeah, I know. At that $90 price point, there's not a lot of competition in terms of good single malts.
I'll say it. I think that it's very, very impressive. I think for that price point for a single malt, and again, we're talking about the whole range here that you could probably try for the Paul John, I guess, expressions that they have. I think for mine, for an $80 whiskey, that's probably an 8.5.
Yeah, I was going to go 8.5 as well. I was thinking 9, but the reason I wouldn't give it a 9 is because I prefer the Malt, and that's at the same sort of price point. But yeah, just a lovely whiskey. can be a little bit hard to find sometimes.
Especially if you are trying to find a bottle, it can be quite tough.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of whiskey bars that we've been to stock sort of one or two, and even then that can be hard to find. But if you do get the chance, we do always say it, buy a glass. We probably said it on every episode so far, but this is a whiskey that is quite different to a lot of other ones that you might have tried. It is worth trying it before you buy it. So.
Yeah, I think at one point our tagline is just going to be just buy a glass.
Yeah,
like
try before you buy with a glass, and it'll be a pretty reasonable glass price as well.
I do remember at one whiskey bar I actually had a pretty fantastic Boilermaker with a Paul John whiskey, and that was so good. I think they paired it with a I think it was an IPA as well, so you got the spiciness of the whiskey and the hops of the really severe hops of the beer, and it was just a fantastic flavour bomb.
We may need to do a Boilermaker episode.
You can.
We no longer can. We are going to do cocktails as well, but I could see that pairing again. You go from different whiskies, different beers, and there's a million combinations you can make out of that. Definitely try that one. Paul John was one of our favourites. It became sort of a real one between the two of us that we talk about quite a bit, and when there's an opportunity to have it, we always will. So
absolutely. All right.
Great way to start.
Yeah. So, on to our second whiskey of the episode. So, Levi, what have you brought for us?
I've got to preface this by saying I didn't actually bring this. One of our wonderful viewers and a friend to the show, Isaac Chaplin, brought along the Amarut single malt. So, a little bit of background on it. Made with Indian barley grown in Punjab and Rajasthan. Now, I know nothing about Indian geography, but I believe that they're both IPL franchises.
Which is important.
So it's probably the most important thing we're going to provide this episode. Aged in American oak and bourbon barrels. This is a 46% single malt. So, we were just saying before that with the alcohol content of all of the whiskies, generally we see sort of a 40 to 45 range. This one's being a little bit higher. Do you want to...
Well, it tends to be the same. I mean, Indian whiskies are barreled very differently because it is a much, much warmer climate. So therefore, they're going to be still very differently. So normally with a Scotch or something, because it's such a cold region, you don't lose a lot to the Angel Share, which I believe we talked about a couple of episodes ago. To do a bit of a deep dive on that, I actually did some research so I could bring this to you. So a standard Angel Share in Scotland, which is the amount of alcohol lost due to evaporation, is about 2% per year.
Yep.
Whereas with the Indian whiskies, because it's a much warmer climate, 10 to 12%. So almost
substantially more.
Almost 5 times as much is lost due to that evaporation. But because of that extra heat, it means maturation happens so much quicker, so that alcohol content is a little bit higher as well.
It's probably also worth just really quickly flagging, this is what we talked in an episode, or one of our previous episodes, about the fact that an age profile really isn't that important unless you are specifically talking essentially about Scottish or Irish whiskies to a certain degree.
Not even Irish to a point. I would say more Scottish.
Yeah, definitely Scotland. That's part of the story and the journey of the whiskey that they try and take you on. That's why when you go anywhere basically outside of that, including anything from Australia, anything from Japan, anything from India, basically anything from anywhere else, it really isn't very important.
So as a general rule, these are in a barrel for about 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Which is actually more than I thought it was. I thought
it
was around 1 to 2.
Lot to it. Yeah. I think when we did our first sort of Indian whiskey tasting, we may have asked that question. I think that there was still sort of a non-exact science, but they are going through that process at the moment. So the Amarut Distilling Company doesn't have an age profile, as we sort of discussed, so they don't do that. That's not part of their makeup. It's essentially, this one's their base expression, and it has a number of different expressions as well, but they do some brandy cask stuff, they do some cask strength varieties as well. That's it, let's get it drinking. Cheers. Very light on the nose.
Very light.
Almost nothing at all on the nose. A little bit of vanilla.
A little bit of toasted flavour in the middle.
But yeah, not a lot. I find that quite sweet on the nose.
Yeah.
It's a little bit harsher than the Paul John.
Yeah. But not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. It's also kind of got, I don't know, the very back of the throat, almost like a hit on a cigar.
Yeah.
A little bit smoky, but not quite in the way that you expect.
But not
whiskey.
Yeah, not a peated smoke. For me, that's almost like the toastedness that comes out of the barrel, the caramelization of the sides as well. Yeah, that really hits the back of the throat. It's interesting. I know interesting is usually used as a
Sounds
word,
horrible.
but it's actually really, really nice. It's just hard to describe.
There's not a lot of flavour complexity as opposed to the Paul John that had a whole bunch of stuff going on really through the mouth. This almost just sort of hits the tip of your tongue, the back of your throat.
And that's it.
The rest of the mouth's pretty empty.
I need a second sip before I go for water.
It's a really lovely flavour. It's just a very sort of one-note flavour, I think. It's doing the sort of toasted vanilla caramel kind of thing and not a lot else.
There's no viscosity at all. It does not stick around
very,
in your
very
mouth.
light.
It just kind of hits and dissipates.
I can imagine that. I think we're almost committed to doing the water thing now with all of our whiskies, but I don't imagine that this is necessarily going to be enhanced by that at all.
Less on the nose.
Ooh. No, the water's actually worked quite well with that.
Oh wow!
Open it up a little bit.
Definitely
full of flavour profile.
A little bit more spice on the front as well with that water.
Yeah, that's brought that out a little bit. Certainly doesn't just go straight to the back.
And
of the throat
definitely takes down that harshness.
Yeah, it does. That's definitely a +1 for the water, I think.
And actually, funnily enough, starts to fill the mouth more.
Yeah.
Which usually doesn't happen when you add water but I guess because it's not a viscous whiskey, it
brings the boldness and the different flavours
I
out
don't
as well.
know science.
Well, we've always just been told and assumed, and it's interesting doing this as we go, we're learning as you do, that the water reacts differently to different whiskies, which is not that much of a shock, but it's also, you get taught that it will, I guess, kind of take the viscosity of the whiskey down, open the flavour profiles up. It's done different stuff with every whiskey that we've tried. That's definitely opened the flavour profile up. It's given it a hell of a lot more. I think pre-water it was really sort of caramel, bit of toast, not a lot of spice, not a great deal of peat, a little bit of smokiness. That was kind of it. A little bit of water in there, and all of a sudden it's got a lot more at the front end. It's got a little bit of spice to it, even a little bit of sweetness.
Yeah. I'm struggling to take big sips of this.
Yeah.
Not because of flavours, but because that harshness, I think, is still quite prevalent.
It is a pretty harsh whiskey, and there's sort of two different ways that people generally describe the harshness. One will just be the really sort of punch you in the mouth, almost not the alcohol content, but almost that sort of really like you get it and it just really fills your nose up and you sort of recoil a little bit. And then the other one for harshness for whiskies is obviously the heat that you get in the back of your throat, and that can be done in different ways, but if it's done poorly it can be really bad.
Because one of the big problems with some whiskies is when you start doing big sips, you get much more harshness and it really starts to override the flavour.
Yeah.
Which is not... I don't drink whiskey to get drunk. I drink whiskey for the flavour. So I tend to find there's whiskies that I don't want to take the big sips of. Yeah. Something like the Paul John, I love taking big sips because it was so complex and it filled the mouth and it was just utterly fantastic. But something like that, it is something you would probably sit on for longer than the Paul John.
Well, I can imagine too, we're talking about sort of taking smaller versus bigger sips and getting the different... Because Paul John's got quite a wide flavour profile, it's doing a lot of different stuff. It's got a little bit of spice, some sweetness, a little bit of vanilla. This is really kind of that toast, that smoke. There's not a lot of other flavour profiles there because it is very focused in terms of what it wants to do. It's obviously going to be quite impactful when you do drink it.
Yeah.
We're certainly not saying that it's bad. I think it'd be fair to say we're certainly not saying that it's as good as the Paul John. No. But it's a very different kind of flavour. It's almost, we've tried a few different Indian whiskies now. That's not, I guess, as Indian a whiskey as I would expect. It doesn't have the same sort of typical subcontinent flavour profile.
There's a little bit of spice, but not a huge
Not
amount.
a lot, and that is something that they're kind of known for,
Yeah.
I guess, the Indian whiskies.
The toast, like as I said, that toasted flavour, like really quite nice, but yeah, I don't know, I'm
Pretty ambivalent about the whole thing.
I'm pretty ambivalent. It's not horrible, I'll say that, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's amazing. Like,
yeah, no, I tend to
I suppose here's the thing. If someone handed me a glass of that, I would gladly drink it. I would probably never go out of my way to buy another glass after having it once.
And as we've spoken about many a time on this show, we're not going to yuck anyone's yum. It really comes down to what you enjoy, and these are different sort of things. I think that the really important thing, I've been thinking about this all week, people that don't drink a lot of whiskey and certainly don't venture out of their comfort zone with whiskies will see an Indian whiskey and go, no, not for me. We went on the journey with the Paul John at a whiskey event that we went to. And I think we could almost subtitle this episode Dr. Whiskey or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Enjoy the Whiskey. Because just try different stuff. And if you try the Amarut and really enjoy it, that's great. You found something that you like. Probably one, I think I'm probably enjoying it a little bit more than you are.
Probably.
You want to have a crack at a
So what are we looking at price per bottle on that one?
So price per bottle, at the moment, that's $82 at Dan's. So it's about the same as Paul John. It's not
a little bit
widely different. But yeah, not a hugely expensive whiskey. Amarut does have quite a wide profile in their pricing. Some of their stuff can be quite expensive, and Amarut's sort of their entry level expression.
The problem is I'm trying to think of what else is around that price point. Because... I mean, it's hard. Like, pretty much my heart just wants to say 6. That's how I feel about it. It's a 6. It's not.
That's fair.
It's not horrible, but it's not something I would go out of my way to drink.
I think I'd probably go with a 7.
7, yeah.
Similar sort of vein. I think that you're comparing it pretty directly in terms of price point and in terms of what it is as an Indian whiskey with the Paul John. It's just not quite as good as the Paul John, but give it a try.
But absolutely, water, great. Pop it on some ice. I think it'll work great.
Actually, that's a very good point. That is definitely one that's made to be drunk with ice.
I think so, and especially being cooled down, maybe then that harshness gets balanced out a little bit nicer as well.
You can see that working pretty well.
But as always, go try some. Might be hard to find though. Like, I would say if you're looking for something like that, you're probably going to have to go the really specific whiskey bars. You're not going to go find that in a general bar.
No. If you walk in and they've got a bottle of Johnny Walker Red behind the bar, they're probably not going to be stocking that. But as you said, this is about exploring and trying different things. And a lot of people haven't tried Indian whiskies or just flat out won't try Indian whiskies. We're here to tell you, do it, because there are some really, really good ones, and we haven't had a really bad one. No. I certainly haven't had a really bad one.
No.
But we've had some mediocre ones as well. Yes. But give them a crack. They are very different. They're doing a lot of different things to your Japanese flavour profiles, your Australian flavour profiles. So it's just interesting to try them and see what they do.
Well, we're at the end of the episode. I think we've been pretty clear on our preference already. We don't really need to do much of a sum up, but between the two we may as well. What was your takeout from the episode?
I quite enjoyed both. I think it'd be fair to say that the Paul John's just a slightly superior whiskey to the Amarut, just in terms of the flavour profile and that smoothness of drinking. It's something that you could certainly have 5 or 6 glasses of if you wanted to sit in and have a session. Amarut, a little bit harsher, very different, and probably not what you'd really expect out of an Indian whiskey, but interesting to try.
Yeah. And I was very clear, I definitely prefer the Paul John. The Amarut was still nice. It wasn't horrible. It's still something I would definitely recommend trying if you see it. It's not going to be a huge disappointment. It's just probably not going to be... It's not going to blow your mind.
Yeah, and look, to be honest, on this show, we've probably got to go with some more colour comments. Yeah. We don't want to see us sit here and give everything a 7 or an 8. No. So we've got to be a little bit more bold with our...
I know, we haven't given one pre-5 yet, but then we've been very clever about our whiskey choice.
We've selected some very, very good whiskies, to be fair to say.
But honestly, though, if you're buying the bottle, spend the extra $6.
Yeah, $8, whatever it is, it's definitely worth it.
To get the Paul John. If you're out and you see them both, I don't doubt they're probably going to be priced about the same
per glass.
Per glass. So honestly, if you see them both, pick up the Paul John. If you see the Amarut, give it a go, because that's probably going to be a little bit rarer and harder to find.
Well, and I think much the same with Scottish or Japanese or any kind of whiskies, different flavour profiles for different regions. Absolutely. They come from different areas, they're distilled differently, they're in different barrels, so all that sort of stuff's going to make a difference. It's interesting to try and see what they do.
Absolutely, that's definitely the way to go. But other than that, we definitely recommend giving the Paul John, and as for the Amarut, try it if you can find it.
And what do we have coming up?
So coming up, we've actually got a bit of a format change coming up. We've gotten some feedback from our viewers and from my time editing that doing 2 whiskies an episode is probably just a little bit too long.
Yep.
We do love drinking, and I think the reason we wanted to do 2 whiskies is to do a bit of a comparison, but I think it tends to... mean we don't experience the whiskies as well as we can. We still occasionally will do 2 whiskies if we've got something really special, something we really do want to compare. Like if we do something like the Nant episode again, I'll be
Yeah.
glad to do too.
I was going to say, we have a number of different things planned, some pretty cool ideas coming up. So some of it is to do comparative, some of it is to do sort of a theme, and then
Yeah.
some of it is just going to be, we're going to do this one whiskey today because we want to talk more about it.
Absolutely. So next week we are going down to, the next episode, not next week, we're still on a 2-week schedule. The next episode we are going to do a single whiskey, which is going to be one of Levi's favourites. So what are you bringing to it?
We're going to go deep into some Islay whiskies, and we're actually going to be trying out one of the most heavily peated whiskies in the world. So it's going to be an Octomore. We'll explain a little bit more about the Octomore range in the episode, but I can't wait for it.
Okay, looking forward to that. We'll see you guys next time. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so that we know we're getting out there, and so that we can get your suggestions on what whiskies we should do.
And as always, make sure to keep your business whiskey. Thanks.
Thanks.